They never defeated you by force. They did something worse. They convinced you to lower your own guard, and while you were trying to be understood, they were studying your openings, your hesitations, your answers given too quickly. The manipulator doesn't need to win. He only needs you not to notice the game. Observe calmly. The people who smile the most are often the ones who calculate the most. The ones who ask for just a minute are the ones who want access to your mind. The ones who speak of peace are the first to test your limits. But something changes when a man opens his eyes, when he realizes the world is not divided into good and evil, but into those who dominate and those who are dominated. What you're about to hear is not comfort. It is the anatomy of control and the silent art of making it impossible. Tactic 1. The void. The silence that disarms manipulators. Most men surrender before they even notice. They answer too quickly. They explain what was never asked. They justify what no one demanded. And in that rushed movement, they open the door to control. Manipulators do not depend on force. They depend on reaction. They need you to fill the silence so they can later shape the narrative against you. Silence, when used with precision, is a rupture in the flow of power. It is a refusal to participate in someone else's emotional theater. It is the moment you make it clear that you will not be guided by another's urgency. Most people fear silence because they feel exposed before it. The manipulator fears silence because he becomes exposed within it. When you say nothing, he reveals too much. Imagine a colleague trying to pressure you with artificial urgency. We need to solve this now. The ordinary man responds quickly, justifying, surrendering ground. The man who controls himself simply observes. He does not fill the space. He lets the other feel the weight of his own attempt to dominate. Urgency collapses when it finds no anxiety to anchor itself to. In personal relationships, the mechanism is the same. The manipulator creates drama to extract explanations. They want to hear your defense so they can turn your words into ammunition. When you respond with precision or choose not to respond at all, they lose the emotional map they intended to use against you. Silence is not absence. It is denial of access. And the lack of access is the beginning of the end for any manipulator. In environments of power, the dynamic becomes even clearer. The hurried man exposes his worth in the tone of his voice. The silent man forces everyone to recalculate his presence. He disorganizes others' intentions simply by refusing to react. With every second of quiet, you remind them you are not there to be shaped. Silence is dominance because it removes predictability. And what cannot be predicted cannot be controlled. Use it when someone tries to extract explanations from you. Use it when you sense emotional demands. Use it when the attack comes disguised as concern. The manipulator always waits for your response. He needs it to continue. When you master silence, you deny him that advantage, and for a brief, absolute moment, power returns to your hands. The man who speaks little is not weak. He is indecipherable, and the indecipherable cannot be controlled. Tactic 2. Cold reading. Seeing intentions before words. The manipulator doesn't control through what he says. He controls through what he anticipates. He studies your patterns, your impulses, your automatic responses, and he uses each one of them as an entry point. Cold reading breaks this mechanism. It is the ability to see the movement before it happens, not through mystical intuition but through detached observation. Manipulators always leave traces. Their mistake is believing no one is paying attention. Intention appears before the sentence, in the tone that softens too much, in the praise that comes too quickly, in the urgency that doesn't match the situation, in the question that doesn't seek an answer, but useful information. The ordinary man reacts to content. The man who dominates observes behavior, and the one who observes behavior is never surprised. In a negotiation, for example, the manipulator exaggerates advantages and minimizes risks, but that is not what matters. What matters is the detail. The slightly caught breath when you disagree, the eyes that shift when he hides something, the posture that changes when he feels his argument failing. These micro gestures are worth more than any speech. In relationships, the dynamic is the same. The manipulative person creates sudden closeness, artificial intensity, emotional urgency. They accelerate the pace because they fear your ability to think. And when they notice you are observing, not reacting, the game loses power. Cold reading requires internal distance. It is not emotional coldness. It is perceptual coldness. It is looking at the other as if analyzing a moving piece, without haste, without judgment, without defense. The less you react, the more they expose themselves. Notice also the most predictable pattern among manipulators. They always try to reduce your alternatives. It appears in phrases like, "There's only one solution. Either you do this or you lose everything. If you were truly loyal, you'd agree." This artificial reduction is a trap. When you identify the attempt, you dismantle the control before it materializes. In social environments, cold reading creates silent hierarchy. The person who understands the game listens less and perceives more. They do not confront. They do not explain. They do not rush. And for that reason, they become dangerous to anyone who relies on manipulation. Reading intentions is not talent. It is discipline. It is observing the rhythm of the other until he realizes he cannot hide anything from you. The manipulator fears those who understand. And cold reading turns you into the absence of openings he most fears facing. Tactic 3. The invisible limit. The art of commanding respect without explaining. The manipulator does not invade because he is strong. He invades because you leave space. And space is born the moment you believe you must explain your boundaries in order to be respected. No powerful man justifies his movements. He acts, and the world adjusts. The invisible limit is exactly that, an internal territory no one crosses because they find no open doors. It is not spoken. It is not negotiated. It is perceived. Most people surrender when they try to be understood. They explain why they cannot help right now, why they disagree, why something bothers them. But every explanation is a concession, and every concession feeds the other's control. The manipulator studies your justifications like an emotional map. Every detail reveals where he can press, where he can accuse, where he can exploit. This is why your boundary must never arrive with a narrative, only with posture. Posture speaks before the voice, the still body, the steady gaze, the absence of hurry. These silent signals communicate that you are not seeking permission to exist. When a colleague tries to dump unwanted tasks on you, the ordinary man responds, "I mean, I can help, but I'm really busy." The manipulator hears only the "I can." He ignores the rest. He senses hesitation. He senses an opening. The man who dominates responds with precision. No. No justification. No softening. No emotional narrative. The boundary is perceived not by the force of the word, but by the absence of explanation. In personal relationships, the invisible limit is even more necessary. The emotional manipulator looks for cracks in your affection, guilt, empathy, distorted responsibility. When you justify your need for space, he turns your explanation into moral debt. When you simply distance yourself, the attempt loses its function. Strategic distance is a language. It says, "I do not belong to your orbit." And a man who belongs to no one's orbit becomes difficult to manipulate. In social environments, the invisible limit creates silent hierarchy. The man who does not explain his movements is interpreted as someone who knows what he is doing. And a man who knows what he is doing never needs permission to protect himself. The invisible limit is not aggression. It is sovereignty. It is the frontier where the expectations of others end and your immutable presence begins. Respect is not earned. It is imposed through the absence of justification. And when you master that absence, manipulators retreat, not out of fear, but out of incapacity. They do not know how to operate in front of a man who does not explain himself. Tactic 4, the calculated absence, becoming inevitable without being constantly present. The manipulator thrives in constant proximity. He needs access, routine, predictability. Anyone who can anticipate your schedule, your reactions, and your moods already holds half the power over you. Calculated absence destroys this dynamic. It is not escape. It is strategy. It is reducing presence to increase impact. It is controlling the value of your attention through scarcity. The ordinary man tries to stay available to avoid conflict. He answers quickly, appears everywhere, explains himself too much, and in the process, dissolves his own importance. The man who dominates knows that excessive presence creates familiarity, and familiarity destroys respect. Calculated absence creates a field of uncertainty around you. No one knows exactly when you reply, when you show up, when you give energy. This unpredictability reorganizes silent hierarchies, because someone who is not always accessible is perceived as someone with priorities greater than pleasing others. In the workplace, the dynamic is obvious. The manipulator uses your availability to overload you. He asks for just one more thing, knowing you will rarely refuse. When you reduce presence, he loses leverage. When you control the rhythm, he loses the script. It is not disappearing. It is not being present for everything. In social circles, calculated absence redefines value. When you answer less, speak less, show up less, every gesture of yours begins to matter more. The human mind works this way. What is rare is interpreted as important. What is constant is interpreted as disposable. Strategic absence cuts the emotional cord manipulators try to tie around you. They depend on your immediate reaction, your automatic yes, your need to please. When you are not available, they lose psychological footing, and the attempt at control collapses in the lack of access. In relationships, this tactic is decisive. The manipulator tries to occupy your routine, wants to dominate your schedule, your time, your choices. When you introduce absence, he loses visibility over your movements. And with that, he loses the ability to direct your emotions. Calculated absence is not emotional coldness. It is sovereignty. It is reminding the other that you do not orbit anyone, that your time is private territory, that your presence is not guaranteed, it is granted. The man who understands the art of disappearing at the right moment becomes inevitable, because the world respects what it cannot possess and fears what it cannot predict. Strategic absence does not distance, it elevates, and a man elevated is not controlled, he is considered. Tactic 5. The black mirror. Return the hidden intention, not the offense. The manipulator never attacks directly. He wounds in layers, irony, suggestion, disguised pity. He tests your vulnerability without exposing his own, and he waits for you to react to what was said, not to what was planned. The black mirror dismantles this tactic. It does not return the offense. It returns the intention, and by revealing the intention, it collapses the control without confrontation. Most people respond with defensiveness or irritation. Both are victories for the manipulator. Defensiveness reveals guilt. Irritation reveals instability. The black mirror offers neither. Imagine someone saying, "Funny that you show up only now." The intention is not the sentence, it is the attempt to place you below them. The ordinary man explains himself. The dominated man apologizes. The man who uses the black mirror responds calmly. Interesting that you notice that. Nothing is explained. Nothing is surrendered. The intention returns to the one who launched it, and he loses ground. In power environments, the black mirror functions like a silent strike. When someone tries to diminish your value with indirect comments, you do not react to the surface. You illuminate the hidden movement. And by doing so, you show that you are not inside the emotional game the other is trying to create. Another common example. You seem stressed. Is everything okay? The question suggests fragility, creates doubt about your stability, and opens a path for control. The black mirror replies, "Curious of you to ask that today of all days." You return the intention without explaining yourself. The person realizes they were seen and steps back. In personal relationships, manipulators use apparent sensitivity as a weapon. They launch subtle provocations and wait for you to stumble emotionally. When you return the intention instead of the emotion, they lose psychological advantage. The black mirror demands 3 elements: internal distance, to avoid reacting to the superficial attack; coldness, to observe the movement instead of absorbing it; precision, to return the strike without raising your voice, without justifying, without involving yourself. By using this tactic, you turn the manipulator into a defendant of his own game. He realizes his weapons have lost their effect, that you see behind the veil, that none of his words can shape your position. And when someone realizes they have been fully seen, manipulation dies before it begins. The black mirror does not confront, it reveals. And what is revealed can no longer control anyone. Tactic 6, the silent exchange, when speaking less makes you worth more. The manipulator depends on information, not the explicit kind, but the kind you reveal without noticing. Your urgency to be heard, your need to explain, your hunger for validation. Every word released too early becomes a weapon in the wrong hands. The silent exchange reverses this logic. It turns your speech into a scarce resource, and everything scarce becomes valuable. The ordinary man speaks to ease discomfort. The strong let silence fill the room. The manipulator, accustomed to extracting advantage from others' verbosity, loses balance when he meets someone who gives nothing. When you speak little, the other is forced to speak too much. He exposes himself. He tries to guide the conversation but reveals intention in the attempt. He shows urgency, desire, fear, because he's trying to compensate for your stillness. And every detail he delivers becomes strategic reading. In a meeting, observe the classic pattern. The one who talks nonstop tries to dominate through quantity, not quality. But the one who remains silent controls through presence. Eyes turn to him, waiting for a reaction. The manipulator watches this man with caution, because he doesn't know what he's thinking, and not knowing is a risk. The silent exchange is not withdrawal, it is calculation. It is offering less to obtain more. In personal relationships, the tactic is even more powerful. The manipulator tries to shape your emotions through narrative, insistent questions, indirect comments, projected stories. When you answer with short, neutral, precise phrases, he loses the emotional map. He seeks pressure where he finds stone, and the stone does not react. The silence between one sentence and the next shifts the entire hierarchy. It creates doubt in the other. Does he agree? Does he disagree? Did he notice something? The manipulator fears this uncertainty because it prevents him from preparing his next move. He doesn't know which version of reality you're accepting or rejecting, and without that information, he cannot control anything. The silent exchange is built on 3 pillars: verbal economy, to avoid giving ammunition; cold observation, to read what the other tries to hide; steady presence, so your quietude is interpreted as strength, not hesitation. Speaking little does not diminish your influence. It increases it, because each of your words gains weight, and everything with weight builds authority. The manipulator does not fear the shout. He fears the man who listens to him in silence. Whoever masters the silent exchange turns every conversation into a territory where only he decides what to reveal, and when. Tactic 7. The impenetrable core. The man no one can move. The manipulator does not aim at your body. He aims at your center, the silent place where you store fear, haste, lack, the desire for acceptance. That is where he operates. And as long as that core is accessible, you will be shifted by another man's impulse. The impenetrable core is the final tactic because it does not depend on external reaction. It depends on internal containment. It is the ability to remain the same under pressure, not through rigidity, but through absolute self-control. Most people are easily moved. A single compliment makes them bend. A single criticism destabilizes them. A single veiled threat makes them begin to yield. The manipulator tests these 3 doors. If any of them opens, he enters. The man who controls his core opens no door. He hears the compliment without bowing. He hears the criticism without explaining himself. He hears the threat without his pulse rising. None of it defines him, because nothing external touches what is essential. This state does not come from arrogance, but from clarity. Clarity about who you are, what you do not tolerate, what you do not hand over. When your center is stable, no attack finds a fragile surface. In work environments, this core creates perceptible authority. The manipulator tries to steer your emotions. Deadline pressure, artificial urgency, social traps. When he sees none of it alters your posture, he changes strategy, from attack to caution. Because what cannot be moved cannot be used. In personal relationships, the impenetrable core prevents deeper losses. The emotional manipulator operates through oscillation, affection and coldness, closeness and distance, guilt and warmth. He creates a storm to see where you take shelter. When you remain in your own axis, he loses the ability to steer your mind. The impenetrable core demands discipline, control of impulse, so you do not respond to the heat of provocation, control of speech so you do not reveal vulnerabilities in the rush to defend yourself, control of silence so the other exposes intention before you expose yours. When the manipulator realizes his attack has no effect, he retreats, not out of respect, but out of uselessness. He understands that any attempt at control dissolves before it reaches you. The man who builds an impenetrable core becomes an unshakable presence. He does not need to threaten. He does not need to justify himself. He does not need to be understood. He simply cannot be moved. And what cannot be moved becomes the highest point in any hierarchy. Now you know the tactics. Not to control other men, but to prevent anyone from controlling you. And that knowledge has a price. From the moment you see the game, you can no longer pretend you live outside it. Every manipulation you tolerate will be a choice, not an accident. Every invasion will be permission, not surprise. Every word that reaches you will reveal where your core is still exposed. Power begins at the point where you decide not to surrender to reflex, haste, or impulse. Dominating another is irrelevant. Dominating yourself is inevitable. So answer without voice and only with awareness. Now that you see the game, how long will you accept being a piece?